If you've seen the YouTube shorts I post, you'll notice I'm into Gundam enough to spend the time building and even painting the models. It's a wonderful hobby that comes with enjoying an anime that fascinated me for years. Starting before Transformers would make an imprint in American culture, Mobile Suit Gundam is a series that can seem deceptively simple before tackling mature themes, with the biggest point being how precious life is. And what fandom doesn't come with its in-depth discussions, digging down into the fuller meanings of what media we are enjoying? I would like to share with you some of where the discussions end up going. From Reddit, in the r/Gundam board, there is a post from 3 years ago. It's titled, "I love when people say Gundam became political." It's a facetious post lampooning the discussions from The Witch from Mercury being political or not. The top comment is by Commander Ponyshep, quote, "Wasn't Gundam always political? It was about the horrors of war and the leaders who exploit soldiers and civilians alike to exterminate enemy leaders and their own soldiers and civilians." 1354 responds with, "It's more than that. It was a commentary on the mistake of Imperial Japan, dressed up as commentary on Nazi Germany." L354 says, "People always complain about politics when it comes to Gundam, even though we all know Gundam is about politics. Current politics." Again, this is from Reddit. And as it is discussed, Reddit is a hub for insane takes from people who cannot be reasoned with. The platform is full of know-it-alls when it comes to political discourse. Moving on, T3HM3T4L says, "Yeah, media illiteracy is a bitch, ain't it?" A deleted account says, "It's insane how low the average person's is. Also, funny how getting political is only a problem when it's politics they disagree with." The thread goes on, but you can get the idea here, and there are going to be 2 points that I want to make before leading into the main point behind this video. The first point is to answer the question of what it means when a piece of media gets political, because I absolutely do not agree with the notion that everything is political. That is a mindset that will lead you to a personal hell that you cannot easily climb out of. You will become terminally online, and people will not want to put up with you. You'll likely needlessly be pushing people out over some purity test in your own head. When people say that a story, game, etc. is political, what they mean is that what is presented to them is meant to politically influence the audience in a way that a piece of artwork isn't simply playing with ideas related to politics, but it is trying to shape your mind and beliefs, or in other words, become preachy and inserting the creator's thinly veiled political takes, which then causes a rift. The effect of this isn't the claimed intention of, quote, trying to make people think. It's trying to think for them. On another hand, you can see people claiming something they once enjoyed got political, when the intent behind it was always to be political in the first place. There are idiots all over the spectrum. Take one of my favorite bands, my absolute favorite bands, Hansel und Gretel. When I'm listening to SS Death Star Supergalactic, am I really listening to something political while the band members are dressed in outrageous outfits that are caricatures of political wear? The correct answer is no. In fact, if you've never listened to that song or anything from Hansel und Gretel, I implore you, go and listen. Hansel and Gretel are people who love German culture and wanted to make fun music together. Did Rage Against the Machine suddenly get political? No, the intent was always political, and it got so bad that Zach De La Rocha's brain was consumed by his own advocacy. And the lines between music and politics did not exist anymore. Back during the Video Music Awards, Rage Against the Machine lost to Best Band, Limp Bizkit, leading to Rage's bass player, Tim Comerford, to protest by climbing up a big structure that was in view while Limp Bizkit was accepting their award. And all of this attention came on to Comerford. And he did this because he viewed Limp Bizkit as stupid. But what does Fred Durst do? Durst says Comerford was rock and roll and that he should be given the award. What a gentleman. Meanwhile, Tim was looking at Dr. Dre scratching his head in absolute wonder and confusion. And of course, well, he didn't really have a whole lot of support. Let's talk comics as another example, though. Around 2014, there would be a discussion about where the industry is going, and while comics may have been used as a medium to talk about political ideas, like when Marvel released a 9/11 comic featuring a crying Doctor Doom, the people behind the medium were beginning to show a sense of cockiness. You may recall the infamous, quote, unsolicited opinions on Israel, unquote, panel. And this conveys a lack of professionalism that is expected from people that are putting out the comics. Readers began to want the discussion of what appears to be political activism in the comics they spend their money and time on. There is a difference between the original X-Men comics being a comparison of the Cold War and the idea of gender swapping a character because it would be progressive, and then fighting the audience you need in order to survive and make more comics in the first place. When you have Marvel Comics putting out material that is a mouthpiece for activism, the discussion isn't organic, and the readers can feel more like the elites owned by Disney are trying to educate them into correct think. But my Captain Americanism punching a newtzy. Yes, your World War II superhero is fighting the opponents we had at the time. Meanwhile, Superman said you could slap a Jap using war bonds and stamps, and I don't want that in my comics either. You may be wondering what this has to do with Japanese robots, and I promise I'm going to get to that, but I still have my second point, which is that the things you love are going to include art made by people who have views that are incompatible to yours. And it is your job to figure out how to reconcile. This is coming from a Burzum fan. Varg will most likely view me as a complete degenerate because of my views. And this does not mean that Burzum does not include some of my absolute favorite black metal and dungeon synth. The art will very often act as an extension of the artist, and for many who are terminally online, if the creator is bad, the art must not be enjoyed. With this, it's time to talk Gundam. Anime is ultimately a storytelling medium where the studio is able to explore whatever ideas they would be able to, so long as the censors do not impede, which has led to Gundam being able to be a little bit more out of pocket and grim. When a character dies, even if it's someone who isn't important, the audience can still feel a sense of weight, like a mother who was hit in the head with a shell from a round popped out of a mobile suit's gun. She dies instantly, and her child is suddenly having to deal with losing her at an instant. This is what Gundam has been able to accomplish when trying to do so. You want to use 60-foot-tall machines as a weapon of war, and the consequences are both unintended and traumatic for anyone who would be involved. Who could have known? The Earth Federation wants to use kids as soldiers, piloting the machines, and they come out mentally scarred for it? How could this happen? Char uses a young girl as a means to an end, and she went batshit for it. Well, I guess she should have been Lala, and then Char would have cared more.
私を導いて欲しかった。生地人の意志が感知できたばかりに。
God bless Gundam. This is why I view it as ridiculous to look at a series like Gundam to push political views a person wants to agree with. There is a reason Gundam is so highly revered by both the left and the right. It's a what-if story, and that itself isn't necessarily a Gundam thing. That's a characteristic of science fiction. The Gundam stories ask what would happen if humans finally made it to live outside of the Earth's atmosphere and develop civilization in what are currently unclaimed parts of the universe. It toys with what the answer could possibly be and keeps in mind that the characters are humans, and humans are going to do flawed and human things. The first series, Mobile Suit Gundam, puts the Earth Federation against the forces of Zeon, representing the colonies and their desire to have independence. While the Earth Federation can arguably be looked at as the good guys in the first Mobile Suit Gundam, the sequel, being Zeta Gundam, shows this may not be the case. Hey, maybe they do some bad things too. Universal Century goes further with how batty the series can be by introducing the concept of new types, people who can communicate to each other mentally. And there's the ability to shape reality by the time we get to the unicorn and narrative stories. Let's go further. Mobile Fighter G Gundam plays with the idea of the space colonies holding MMA fights with giant mecha. Gundam Wing features what looks like a boy band constantly trying to figure themselves out while pulled between an oppressive Earth government and a violent mission from the space colonies, and a secret society that wishes to undermine both and rule everyone with their own underhanded means. Gundam 00's boy band, however, is of the desire to rid the world of wars by snuffing out the possibility before they happen, and even then, major screw-ups are going to happen. One story will end, and yet years later in the canon, sides are back at it with more war. And this is because war isn't simply a political thing, it's biological. No matter the amount of protests and songs by musicians who want to make a difference, Mobile Suit Gundam puts the fact in your face that humans are violently tribal. War stories are often political, but they are not inherently so. The problem is that humans develop pattern recognition and will frequently see patterns that aren't there. Does the creator of Mobile Suit Gundam, Toshiyuki Tomino, have his own political beliefs that could lead into his creation? Of course. We still have to give credit to what he and the others who are behind the stories are, not necessarily trying to preach at us and influence us to a political side. It doesn't matter what my political takes are and where I lie in the political spectrums. I'm looking at a story and asking what happens when humans are in space in a way that none of us living in the current year of our Lord will be able to experience. I adore Warhammer 40k as well with my Space Marines. Does it mean that I want to live in the Imperium? Absolutely not, despite the fact that the Emperor protects. I can be whatever I want to be politically, and at the same time, I can be a grown-up that understands I should take the stories for what they are and enjoy what I can get out of them. Many people who want to screech about politics are midwits who are unable to recognize that they are, and for this, I care not what they have to say as they talk about The Witch from Mercury being some critique on capitalism, despite their not knowing what capitalism actually is in the first place. Furthermore, no, The Witch from Mercury is not woke either, and I don't give a shit that it involves main characters who want to scissor. I have better things to do and smarter people to talk to. My only lamentation is that I will never be able to witness anything like an actual real-life new Gundam, let alone pilot it. You know those people who obsess about Avatar and got super depressed that the world that the Na'vi live in isn't real? That's me with Gundam. My existence is sad, but I can still build the models.